Welcome into the New England Hockey Journal's RinkWise Podcast. I'm your host, Evan Marinofsky, joined as always by the great, the wonderful Patrick Donnelly. Patrick, what's up?
Not much. I don't feel great and wonderful. I had my COVID and flu shots yesterday, so we're battling today, but the show goes on.
At the same time, so you're getting hit with everything right now.
Yeah, rolled the dice. Last year didn't react all that poorly. This year, mixed bag, but we're fine.
The flu shot I try to get early in the fall. I try to get that.
I slacked off. Finally,
what's funny though is like I'll get it at CVS, which I feel like I'm in like a back alley getting it at CVS. I love CVS. We're a pro CVS podcast, but I always feel like I'm getting it at a back alley because someone comes out from doing pharmacy things, and then there's like a little boxed off area, and they're like, "All right, take your shirt off," and then they do it. And this year she did it, and it didn't even feel like it went in, and I was like, "Did you do it?" And she's like, "Yep, you're good. Bye." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I don't know. I think I got my flu shot. I know there was a needle in me, but I don't know. I don't know if the stuff went into me. So, you get it at the doctors or CVS? No, flu.
Walgreens.
That was the flu shot. Yeah.
Well, no, I asked, have you since gotten the flu?
Oh no, I don't believe I have.
So you must have.
Believe I have.
Must be working.
I hope. I think it was. I think it did. So you went to Walgreens though. That's a clash of CVS versus Walgreens. That's a tough one. Ooh, I don't know.
Closest
about that.
thing.
Well, it's a busy time of year, obviously. A lot of hockey going on. You and I were at the Ed Burns coffee pot tournament on Sunday. We were at Arlington for the top 8 seeds. We will talk about that. We will also get into some big prep stuff. We are approaching the final month of the season. So we're going to take a look at sort of where the Elite 8 lies, how the small school tournament looks, how the large school tournament looks, sort of a forecast of where the next month might go. We'll also get into some hot teams, things like that. St. Mark's for the boys had a big week. Obviously, girls, that Williston Dexter game we'll get into. But first, we'll start with Ed Burns. We'll start with the Ed Burns coffee pot, which we were both at, and it was on Sunday, so it's of most relevance to now. You were there. We split it a couple of years ago. Jeff Cox and I split the tournament. I went to the 9 through 16 seeds, and he went to 1 through 8 on that first day, and we were there for all 4 games. And starting last year, I said, Pat, you know what? Let's split the big games. We'll see the big teams in action. And you went to Hingham, Winchester, and Reading, Braintree. I went to Arlington, Tewksbury, and Belmont, Concord, Carlisle. I got to admit, I think you saw the better games. Arlington crushed Tewksbury 7-1. Belmont crushed, I wouldn't say crushed, but beat Concord Carlisle pretty handily, 5-1. Your games were better. Hingham Winchester, big, Division I matchup. Reading Braintree, double OT. We'll start with Reading and Braintree. Braintree has been a team this year that can kind of beat anybody. They just beat Pope Francis. They obviously almost beat Reading. What did you think of that 1-0 win?
Yeah, it was a pretty wild 1-0 game. Both goalies were fantastic. The first period, Reading really dictated the pace, and you're sitting there like, oh boy, this could get out of hand. And then, Amir Cullinane had a phenomenal game, kept them in it in that first period. And, even when Reading had pockets of, strong play again throughout the rest of the game, made some fantastic saves in OT. And Reading finally found a way to break through and double overtime because, like I said, that first period, it felt like they had several chances to be up 1 or 2-0 going into the first intermission. But, good goalie duel, solid performances on both sides, especially Nate Vitorisi on D, I thought was awesome. Liam Hansen obviously had the game winner. Yeah.
And there was a controversial call because I showed up right after the game ended. People were filing out, and the talk of everybody was this interference call that Dave Fasano from Braintree, the coach, was going nuts about. What happened there?
Yeah, so I saw it out of the corner of my eye. The play was, kind of going the other way. Let me see who it was. It was Sean Canavan coming back across the blue line to go for a change. Incidentally collides with a Reading defenseman. Kind of dumps him, and I think that's what drew the call. It was incidental. Like, didn't mean to get just two guys skating and they collide or Reading defenseman's skating backwards, doesn't see Canavan coming. He just gets right in Canavan's way. Um, and just, the way it looked, it didn't look great, but it was incidental. It's a tough call to make in the moment. And yeah, Braintree was not pleased. It was just quite a scene.
My biggest takeaway, I didn't watch this game, but my biggest takeaway, I think, from that is Braintree to me seems like a sleeper team. Braintree to me seems like a team who, come the tournament, is going to be a team that's going to have some upsets or could upset some teams. Obviously, great goaltending. They find ways to win. They're gritty.
They're
A
big
lot
too.
of Yeah, a lot of our focus obviously goes to Reading and Arlington and Hingham when it comes to Publix, Marshfield, who surprisingly isn't in the top 8 seeds in this tournament. They've been up and down to sort of start the year. Um, but Braintree to me is a sleeper. I wonder, like I asked in that midseason report, who's going to be the Winchester of last year? Would it shock you if Braintree was a team that made a run?
No, I mean, especially you look at Reading, they were the number one seed in the tournament, and Braintree almost came out of there with a win. So I think it shows you, like, especially in this tournament, and it's like it's nice, it's a little snippet of what we can see like in a month in the MIA tournament, where anybody can beat anybody, and it really just comes down to goaltending a lot of the times too.
Yeah. So again, in the latest MIA power rankings, which are as of January 28th, which is when we're recording this, Braintree is 18th. 18th. Imagine getting them in the first or second round. Like they're going to be. I can't. I'm not doing the bracket in my head right now, but they're somewhere. They're going to be facing probably a higher seed in that second round if they make it. Would that shock you? No, I don't think that would shock you at all. I mean, again, like even Marshfield's the ninth is 19th in the power rankings. I mean, we've talked all year, and I've talked all year about parity. Parity's huge this year.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
and it's
Brookline beat Braintree on a Saturday night. Big
Oh, I
upset.
didn't even know. I didn't even notice
Yep.
that. Okay, so that like again, like it's a weird year, and Brookline's 33rd, and again, like we look at sort of the bottom part of the top 10, and you have St. John's at 11 and Winchester at 12 and Archbishop Williams at 13, but don't sleep on a Braintree at 18 or a Marshfield at 19. Like that's a bad matchup. Oh, that's a really bad like second round matchup if you're a higher seeded team. But good for Reading. Reading continues to roll top four in the latest power rankings. I have them in high in my top 10. And then you also had Hingham and Winchester. How close was that? What did you think? I mean, Hingham, we've talked a lot about. What did you think of Winchester so much?
It was close for like half the game. You know, it's 1-1, or I think 2-1 Hingham going into the second. Winchester ties it early, and then Hingham scores, I don't know, 30 seconds after the goal. They score two goals in like 34 seconds, something like that, and it's all of a sudden 4-2. Winchester comes unglued a little bit. They're in the box. There's a lot of Hingham power plays and 4-on-4s throughout the rest of the second period, and then just kind of lost their heads in the third period. Um, where I don't think you know Hingham dominated, but that game was still there for Winchester to kind of get back into it. But I texted you where things were just kind of souring on the bench for Winchester, and they kind of lost their heads a bit. But it was
And you
a
left before I got there, jackass.
hey, I you also had like the other game also ran like 20 minutes overtime, so you had plenty of time to come in and catch the end of
That's
that.
right. I did have plenty of time for that. That's for sure.
But it was just a good showing for Hingham's top guns. Whether it was on D, Sean Carroll had a great game. And you look out front, it was Connell Mulcairn and um, who Cam McKenna, Matt
Yes.
McClellan had a good game. McKenna's shot is unbelievable. His release. The goal he scored made it 4-2. It didn't even look like he had that great of a shooting angle off a pretty good drop pass from Mulcairn. Um, but off his stick in no time, and perfectly, top right corner, top shelf. It was a beautiful goal. So I think that was, maybe part of it too, where Hingham just kind of had, more horses, at their disposal. Where Winchester had good stretches. Max Vazella had a beautiful goal. Caden Brady had a couple good passes and plays too. Um, but at the end of the day, I think Hingham's high end talent just kind of showed out.
Yeah, McKenna might be one of the best pure goal scorers in the MIA. That kid can just freaking rip a puck. I remember seeing him against Arlington, just picking corners and hitting crossbars and all that stuff. So again, I think this to me, like doing the Ed Burns Coffee Pot 2 years ago, last year, this year, I think the biggest sign you get is who are going to be those teams that make an impact or can make an impact in March. We know about Arlington, we know about Hingham, we know about Reading. What about the other publics? And for me, in the games that I saw, I hadn't seen Belmont yet, and I've had Belmont at 10 the last 2 weeks, and the MIA power rankings have them at 7 now, so they have moved up. And I haven't done my rankings for this week yet, but I'd imagine they'll move up as well in mine. But the big thing with them is their top line. Their top line is filthy. Liam Gilderson, who's an 09 with that 15 Eagles team, he had a great game. Great game against Concord Carlisle on Sunday. Just smooth hands, wicked shot, good speed, moves his feet well. Like, that kid is good. We talk about like who are the high end guys in the MIAA. He is undoubtedly one of them. And then he plays with Adam Bauer and Leo Packard. Adam Bauer had a dominant game. On Sunday, he's just so physically imposing. He can score. He doesn't let anybody stop him from going to the front of the net. Packard's a great passer. Packard helped out a lot as well. So, we talk about teams who could make a run. I talked about Braintree, and Belmont's ranked much higher. But Belmont's top line, obviously, yes, you can make the case, oh, what if a team figures out how to shut them down? But also, who's shutting down a top line? We saw it last year with Kimball Union over in boys prep. Their top line was phenomenal. And it's yeah, if you shut down that top line, that team, it might not be as good or won't be as good. But it's hard to shut down a line that's that good. We saw this with St. John's Prep last year with Johnny Ty and Jake Vanna and Christian Rosa. That line dominated. This line does similar things. So, I could see Belmont making a real run based on how good they are up front. And I think it's going to be interesting because they play in that Middlesex League and they're playing good teams all year. Their schedule is not easy. Again, that was one of my big takeaways. And Concord Carlisle played pretty well. Concord Carlisle kept it pretty close. But Belmont pulled it out in the end. Another guy, Ethan Bauer in net, a late 08. He's 6'3". He's really good. Real good. Belmont is another team that I would put in that category of would you be shocked if they made a run? I wouldn't be. Just seeing them on Sunday and sort of what they've done this year so far. So that was one of my big takeaways from Belmont. Concord was good. I didn't think Concord played a horrible game. Kind of like Winchester, things sort of came unglued in the third. There were some shenanigans in the final couple minutes, which is always fun. Horribly officiated game, by the way. I mean, there was a play. I don't have names, and I'm not going to, call kids out for being dirty or anything, but there was a massive open ice hit by a kid from Concord Carlisle. And then the kid skating up ice, nowhere near the puck. And a kid from Belmont turns around and just right to the head pops him, just in center ice. And the refs called both of the kids, and it was 5-on-5. And it's what is that? What is that? How is that? And I don't have the video. I don't, I'm not going to say names because I don't believe in, being oh, so-and-so, watch out for this kid. I'm not getting into that. But just ridiculous. But so that was that game. And then Arlington and Tewksbury. I expected a little more out of Tewksbury. Tewksbury's one of the top teams in D2. They've had a good year. Arlington stepped on him early and never took the foot off the gas. JP Missouri had a hat trick by the end of the first period, which is a feat. Scored early in the second. I still think he might be the most electrifying player in the MIAA. Just most fun to watch. Small, feisty, skilled, smart. And Campetrillo played a really good game with him. Drew Beck, I thought, was phenomenal up front as well. Nolan Russell played sparingly, and of course his first shift resulted in a Missouri goal. So Arlington's another, and I think it's good for Arlington to get that a dominant win over Tewksbury because Arlington has stumbled the last couple weeks. So I think it's big for them to sort of get things going. This Sunday against Bentley, they have Reading, so that's going to be a huge game. And then over on the other side, just to, we didn't watch those games. Marshfield and Canton next week will be a pretty big game. Canton's always a good Division II team. Marshfield, same thing in Division One. Weymouth and Chelmsford. Don't sleep on Weymouth. Weymouth's a good team. Like Weymouth is in the MIA boys power rankings 15th. They're 9-3-1 right now as we record. They're another team. I haven't seen them yet. I have a friend who's an assistant coach who I play men's league with, so got to shout him out. Go Nicky. Yeah, I mean, my biggest takeaway I think from the Ed Burns coffee pot is just how many teams there are that I could easily see making a run come March.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked so much about top lines that Missouri Petrillo line can certainly do some damage in March.
Yeah, and again, if and when Nolan Russell is back and healthy, that's another high end top line. So them, Belmont. I mean, there's a lot of publics that I think I could really see making a run. And I don't know if anything will surprise me this year. I mean, we always do get surprised by stuff. There are upsets, but even if again, if a Braintree won over a higher seed, even though it's an upset, I think would kind of be like, well, clip this, clip this podcast. Please go back and listen to it. So that could be a thing. But so that's the Ed Burns. And why don't we get into Elite Eight forecasting? Let's put on our weatherman hats. We'll start with girls prep. Let's start with girls prep. You were at a big girls prep game, Williston and Dexter, and there was some controversy.
There wasn't controversy in the moment until the next
No.
day when we had some parents reach out to us with some newfound video.
Appreciate it, by the way. If that happens in a game, let
Yeah.
us know. We're not going to write about it, but we'll talk about it and we'll mention it later on for sure.
Yeah. So it's a third period power play. Maggie Chudzinski, who had a phenomenal game. She's going to be a stud, just like her brother.
2010.
Yeah. She has the puck at the point. It was a great wrist shot. It was perfectly placed. From my vantage point, I think from a lot of people's vantage points, it looked like it hit the crossbar.
Clearly, from the ref's vantage point, it hit the crossbar.
From the ref's vantage point too, apparently. And come to find out, we have someone had a GoPro or something behind the net, and it went in off the back bar, tumbled down the twine, and rolled right out. And Williston covered, and you could tell from the reactions. I think I can't tell if the Dexter bench knew it was in. I think they saw the crossbar and thought it might have gone in. I think there were two players on the ice for Dexter that kind of were like, "All right, that went in," but they didn't put up a fight or anything. Because there's
Dexter's
also nothing
bench is far away from that net. That was because that
Yeah, but in that moment, I guess there's also nothing you can do because there's no video review and I mean, if one ref saw it, then you can imagine a conference would have took place and they would have talked about it. But other than that, if they don't see it, that's kind of it. There was a play like that for Williston against Cushing down at St. George's at the New Year's prep tournament. Violet Carroll slap shot off the back bar straight out, clearly in from my vantage point. I think others behind the net, but ref missed it. We play on. And then there was another weird sequence. I still don't know what happened with Loomis, Chafee, and Kent, where there was a shot, didn't look like anything happened, puck's in the corner, all of a sudden plays blown dead, and ref saying, "Oh wait, that was in." So I'm kind of on a heater with these situations.
You're always at these controversial goal events.
Yeah, but it is what it is. With a missed call like that, you hope, especially in the moment, but now seeing it there after the fact, you're kind of glad, nobody kind of got screwed with a loss out of that, miss. Dexter and Williston tie 0-0. Best 0-0 hockey game I've ever seen. It was an unbelievable game. Annabelle Aitken was fantastic in net for Dexter. Same for Olivia Farabee for Williston. We talked about Maggie Chudzinski. She had a great game. It was really fun to see Evelyn Doyle and Nora Curtis go head to head as the top centers, two of the best 200-foot centers in the NEPSAC. So it was a really good game. Kind of solidifies both standings. I guess if Dexter, that goal did count or whatever, they'd probably be number one for me. I don't know if they would. I don't know if it'd be enough for them to overtake Williston in the RPI or the JSPRR, whatever calculation is the one that figures out the tournaments.
Yeah.
But either way, both prove that they're the top two teams to beat. And Dexter again coming back against Thayer on Friday. They were down 3-1, won 4-3 in a pretty big matchup there too.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dexter would have been one for you had they won that game.
Yes. Yes. What it
But
says for the math, who's to say?
yeah, that's sort of the tough part to figure out. In terms of the Elite Eight, it almost feels like it's a 1A, 1B situation with Williston and Dexter at the top. But as of now, I mean, you have, we're recording this January 28th. You've got Williston 1, Dexter 2. This is according to USHR. Cushing 3, Thayer 4, Loomis 5, BB&N 6, Andover 7. And you have Nobles down at 8. What do you make of this, and how do you potentially see this changing over the next month?
So I'm surprised BB&N is still at 6 at 9-4-1. Although I guess their two losses to Stansted, I believe, don't count towards playoffs because Stansted is an associate technically.
There we go. That's true.
So vibes wise, it doesn't really match at 6, but again, the math doesn't lie.
You think it should be higher or lower?
Well, I mean, sitting at 9-4-1, they lost 3 in a row last week. Again, 2 of them technically don't count.
Oh, that's right.
Playoffs.
That's right. That's right.
I would have
Yes.
expected them to be lower. But they responded with a big week. Who'd they beat this week? They beat Rivers, which big blow to Rivers losing that game. They lost 2 this week to BB&N and Groton. And then kind of like Nobles at the. We've talked about Nobles being the 8 seed in the past, or I think last time we talked they were first in the large school tournament seeding. But Nobles as an 8 seed would be, first of all, watch out to anybody that has to play them. And second of all, like Williston and Nobles in the first round would be insane. But it's so far like nothing's terribly surprising from the way the season's shaken out so far. Cushing is rolling right along. Couple we've talked about their offense and their top line plenty. The thing for Cushing will be how they fare over the next 2 or 3 weeks. Because we've talked about their only 2 losses this year have been against Williston, and other than that they've beaten Rivers, they've beaten Exeter. Berkshire's been a tough out this season. They've beaten them. So they've made the most of their schedule and beaten the good teams that they've had to beat. But now you're kind of getting into the thick of things. You get Andover, you get BB&N, you get New Hampton, Nobles. After Lawrence Academy, you got Loomis, BB&N again, Deerfield, Dexter. So this next month is going to tell us a lot about Cushing. I think a lot of teams are in a similar boat. Where Andover's been kind of again beating up on their schedule, and your schedule is what it is, but you're hitting a tough stretch here. Let's see what happens, especially now that you're at full strength after the U18s. So we talked about sort of, and I talked about it in my rankings. We probably talked about it last week where, there's been a lot of chalk lately. And again, your schedules are your schedules, but I think now we're starting to hit the next 2 or 3 weeks where there could be quite a bit of change in this Elite Eight field. Maybe not necessarily teams dropping out and moving in, but as far as jockeying for seeding.
Well, yeah, I mean, Andover faces Williston and Nobles February 15th and 19th, 2 games in a row. So I that'll be big. And I even look at Cushing's rolling 18-2. And then you sort of get into the other tournaments. You have Exeter and Deerfield who lead the Patsy Auden tournament. You have Groton and New Hampton who lead the small school tournament. Do you think any of them make a push to get in the Elite Eight or not really?
I think Deerfield could. They got back into my rankings this week, and they've been hot lately. They've had some big wins. It just comes down to, again, like most other teams, hitting a probably pretty pivotal stretch in their schedule because they got this week they got Andover, and then to finish out the season, there's Cushing, there's Williston, and there's Loomis the last weekend of the season. So they're going to have to make the most of their winnable games between those, and then also have a pretty strong end of the season against 2 top 3 teams. So Deerfield maybe, Exeter maybe, they were in the mix. They just slipped out after losing to Nobles. They're in a kind of a tough spot too, where They've again, you're making the most of your schedule, but you've lost to Cushing, you've tied Deerfield, you've lost to Nobles. So down the stretch, what are you going to do against a Loomis, a Dexter, a BB&N? Those are three in a row. Honestly, these next five games, because Tilton's not in any of the playoff picture, but I think they've won like five straight, something like that. They're
Hmm.
finding a groove. They might sneak into the small school bracket. Rivers is obviously a factor. They were in the Elite Eight picture for a little bit. They slipped out after two losses. You get Loomis, Dexter, and BB&N 5 games in a row against tough teams. So it's another, big stretch for Exeter. Um, Anywhere else, I don't know if New Hampton can do enough to sneak back in at 8-5-2. Um, I'd have to look at their schedule the rest of the way, and obviously, if they win out or pick up a couple of huge upsets somewhere in there, I bet they, maybe they have a chance to slide in. Same for Groton. Rivers probably slipped out for good this week with two losses to BB&N and Groton. So it's like it's kind of starting to take shape. And maybe I'm, again, I don't know the inner workings of the math. I'm trying to project here, so maybe I'm writing off some teams a little too early. But like kind of like I said, I think we're getting a good picture of who the 8 teams are going to be. Maybe a ninth or a 10th or 11th team become a factor there. But I think a lot of it the rest of the way might just be jockeying for seeding.
Yeah, my eyes would be on Andover moving up. I just
Yes.
given that roster, and again, if they were a 7 seed, that's a brutal 7 seed to play.
And
Noble's
I,
brutal 8 seed to play.
I think one of the things for Andover, why they haven't moved up so much in my rankings, why they've still kind of stayed low in the math, is because that's the tie to Loomis and the loss to um, Dexter in the first game of the season, where like that was a pretty big blow to their kind of standing. And everyone they've gotten back on track, and everyone else is kind of still doing their thing. So I think like this game against Cushing on Wednesday is big. Let me find their schedule the rest of the way too. Like you got Cushing, BB&N, Deerfield, Tabor, who's under 500 but has given some teams. Tabor's 5-6-1. They've had some big wins. They've also given some teams some pretty tough tests. I think there was a 1-0. They've a couple 1-0 games the last few weeks. I think there was a 1-0 loss to Thayer and a 1-0 loss to um,
Loomis Chafee,
Loomis
by the way.
Chafee. So like they've beat New Hampton in overtime. They've had done a pretty good job of like, kind of playing spoiler so far. So again, Andover, if they can kind of make it out of this stretch, either, running the table over the next 2 weeks or so, or, well over 500, I would expect them to move up.
How about Tabor's opponent's winning percentage of almost 700? That's
Yeah,
incredible.
right.
That's incredible. We always get on
Like
teams for soft schedules. I don't think theirs has been very soft.
that's the thing with them. They're the third seed in the large school tournament. They're 5-6-1, but they might have had the toughest schedule in prep so far, and
Yeah.
they've kind of done the best they can with it, I think. Whether it's those 1-0 losses, there's the overtime to New Hampton. Yeah, pretty impressive for, Tabor kind of weathering the storm here. And, if they can build some momentum down the stretch, I'd look out for them in the large school tournament.
So let's transition to boys. Boys Elite Eight. Interesting field, huh, Pat?
I just had it up. I don't anymore. One second.
It's a
This is great radio.
isn't
Oh,
it? It's great. There you go.
so we got Dexter at 1, Avon 2, St. Mark's 3, Brunswick 4, Deerfield 5, Salisbury 6, Cushing 7, Belmont Hill 8. Wasn't Cushing on the outside looking in last time we talked?
They were like on Saturday, I think. I don't know. Like they beat Kimball Union, so they moved in. Kimball Union is out of the Elite Eight as of now, which I find stunning. Um, I to me, I mean, the first big thing is St. Mark's at 3. I think that's the thing that everybody's like, whoa. They had a huge week. They moved up to 3 in my rankings. St. Mark's gets some flack. I think a lot of Eberhart teams get flack. Oh, softer schedule, this or that. This past week, or 8, 9 days, 4-3 win over Rivers, 4-1 win at Belmont Hill, 5-2 win at St. George's, all on the road, all wins, obviously. And, I think when you look at this Elite Eight, you go, oh, is St. Mark's going to be stable at 3? Now, St. Mark's has some big games coming up. They have Cushing, they have Rivers again, they have St. George's again. But those 3 wins might have solidified them in that Elite Eight. Unless they fully fell off over the next couple weeks, they might be in, like, because of those wins. Now, again, we're not math experts. I didn't major in math. I don't believe you did either. So we're in the same boat. But I think they might be safely in, even if it's that 7 or 8 spot come the end of the year, given the last week that they had, because it was that good. So St. Mark's, their goaltending with Justin Brisebois has been phenomenal. They're deep up front. They're great on D. Like that, they're in there. They've earned their place in there. Only one loss this season, and it was I think right after they beat Dexter. I think it was to Winchester. And then elsewhere, I mean, Dexter and Avon to me have been 1 and 2 for a long time. But I don't see them as like dominant 1 and 2 seeds, because the rest of the field is pretty damn good. I mean, Brunswick at 4, they've been up there the whole year. Deerfield has moved up into that 5th spot. They continue to beat really good teams. They beat Kimball Union recently. They beat Cushing recently. They beat Salisbury and Avon earlier this year. So like they certainly have the big wins to get in. Salisbury has done a complete 180, which is no surprise given they do this like every year. People were like, "Oh, Evan, you ranked Salisbury number 1 and they were in the 8th place game at the Flood Bar." And it's like, well, they find a way in the second half. And Lord knows they found a way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 0 and 1 in their last 8 games. Tied to Trinity
They're doing the
Pawling.
thing.
Yeah, they are doing the thing. And so they're going to be like, again, right now, if the Elite Eight started, they'd play St. Mark's in the first round, which I don't think is a matchup that St. Mark's would want. But I expect Salisbury to move up. I expect Salisbury to be in that top 4 come the end of the season. Cushing's moved their way in. Cushing's been, but which is interesting because they did just beat Kimball Union. They did beat Thayer, but they've also in their last 5 games lost to Salisbury, Deerfield, and Winchester. So I don't know exactly how that works. I still have question marks with them. Not that I don't think they're good. I think they are good. I just, there's other teams in the Elite Eight hunt. Thayer, Kimball Union, Berkshire, Holderness, even St. George's. Like, do they push in? So, Cushing, I don't know. And then Belmont Hill, I mean, we had high expectations for them at the beginning of the year. They haven't, up until they lost to St. Mark's on the 22nd, which was this last week, they hadn't lost since early December to Governors. So like they've been really hot. So I expect them to rise. So the Elite Eight as of now, hard not to pick top seeds, but I also could easily see a Deerfield or a Salisbury making an upset if the Elite Eight began today as currently constructed.
How much more do you think Salisbury could move up if they keep this up?
It's an interesting question. I mean, if they keep this up, they have Frederick Gunn coming up Wednesday. They have Berkshire, which is a top 10 team. Then, like looking forward, Taft has been a good team. They have them on February 12th. They have Brunswick the 19th and Avon the 22nd of February. So my guess is those 2 games are going to be really key. And, if they lose both those games, are they suddenly in the large school tournament? If they win both those games, are they the 3rd seed in the Elite Eight? Like, wouldn't shock me. So I think they could continue to rise. They could move up, I think, for sure. They've been getting scoring outside of Davis and Headley recently. Morris, Brud Delaney's been much better. Jake Novak's been producing. Colin Feely and Chris Baird-Gajdos on D. Steven Luciano's been really good in net of late. Jordan Rittenberg also has been really good in net. So, like, they've got it. It's just, can you continue to string wins together over the last month of the season to solidify a high Elite Eight seed? Now, I think given what Salisbury's done in the past and given the caliber of that roster, I think it's absolutely doable.
And, looking into the large school and small school a little bit, do you think any of these higher seeds, whether it's a Thayer, a Kimball Union, a St. George's, can kind of sneak their way back in?
So usually it's the large school teams that we look at and say, oh, those are the ones that are going to sneak in. And maybe a Thayer does. Nobles has been good of late, although they did just lose 6-1 to Lawrence Academy, but then beat Andover 7-1 the next day. So they've been a little bit tough to forecast. I look at the small school bracket, 4 teams in there I think are Elite Eight caliber. You got Kimball Union at 1 right now in the small school. They've been without Corwith Simmers for almost a month now, which is a brutal blow. They've had like 5 kids with concussions. They always have either injuries or sickness that like really hits them in the middle of the season. I would be shocked if they were not in the Elite Eight. I would be shocked. For them coming up, their big games, Holderness, February 7th, and Holderness, February 15th. And then they have Cushing, February 22nd. I think those 3 games are going to be really indicative of where they end up, what tournament they end up in. St. George's is really strong. I mean, a team everybody's obviously watching given the high-end talent that they have. They have Dexter this Wednesday, which will be a pretty big game. You've got Rivers down the stretch. You got St. Mark's. Can they be consistent enough to win all of those games and get in? Maybe. But I mean, again, there's a lot of teams that are going to be vying for the Elite Eight as well. Berkshire fell out of the Elite Eight. They were safely in. They lost to Choate last week, 5-3. So that, do they get in? They have a very, very, very low opponent win percentage of almost 39. They're at 0.40. So, I don't know. I don't know if they sneak in. And then Holderness. Holderness was in it as of last week, but then they lose to New Hampton. They lose to Governors. And they also needed overtime to beat North Yarmouth Academy. So just a really out-of-character week for Holderness. But again, it's still a team that has shown that they could get in the Elite Eight. So those would be my 4-ish teams I see competing with the 8 that are currently in there. I'd be stunned if Kimball Union wasn't in the Elite Eight. I would be stunned. So does Cushing move out and Kimball Union move in? Like, I have that Kimball Union Cushing game circled as like, does the winner of that go to the Elite Eight? Maybe that's looking at it from too much of a simplistic point of view. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a deep field. And I think a new team or 2 will get in the Elite Eight by the end of the month for sure. End of February.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about parity plenty in MIA boys. Seems like there's plenty this year in both boys and girls prep.
There is, and I think that that's a good thing. And, elsewhere, just sort of in the large school, Nobles, Taft has been really good of late. Andover's stumbled since winning the Floodmar. They were in the Elite Eight safely after the Floodmar. Now they're, kind of middle of the large school pack. Kent's a team that's been very, very up and down this year. Seems like they're going to be a large school team. But again, we had high hopes for them. Wouldn't shock me if they're a team in the large school who does some damage as a middle or a lower seed. One team we never really talk about, Trinity Pauling. Trinity Pauling's been really good this year. They have Liam Lefebvre, who's a Vermont commit, Andrew Migliore, who's been both 30-point getters right now. They're both averaging well over 2 points a game. Ludovic Galvin on D, 24 points in 14 games. In net, Andre Matusek. A lot of cool names they have on Trinity Pauling. I love the names they've got. They're a low seed in the large school every year. It feels like, at least the last 2. A large school, a lower seed in the large or small school goes on a little bit of a run. Berkshire did it last year. I believe Pomfret's done it a couple times. I could see them making a run. Their talent is very high end, so wouldn't shock me there. And then over in the small school, Rivers is a 7 seed. Like, I don't want to play them in the first round. Pomfret has been a team. Tilton, both of them have been really good this year. Middle of the road or middle tier small school teams. So that small school bracket, to me, in the last 2 years I've been covering this, normally the small school bracket's like, oh, the first 2 teams are really good and then the rest are whatever. This year though, that lineup is stacked. So yeah, I wouldn't, like, if you're a St. Mark's or any small school team, I wouldn't want to fall back into that small school tournament, because that looks shaping up to be a good one a month ahead. We'll have stories, by the way, on these next week. We'll have look ahead. Same with MIAA as well, which will be very, very interesting. For over 20 years, Eric Nate's Euro Hockey has been helping hockey players of all ages develop their individual skills and improve on all aspects of their game. Through structured drills and innovative training equipment, Eric Nate's Euro Hockey's intense on-ice instruction challenges each student to be the best at their ability. Find a hockey clinic or summer camp that is right for you today at nateshockey.com. That's NATES hockey.com. Eric Nates Euro Hockey, trained to be the best.
Are you serious about playing your sport in college? Do you need a flexible education that allows you to maintain your practice and competition schedules while also preparing you to succeed at the next level? You should check out the University of Nebraska High School. UNHS is accredited and offers more than 100 online courses, including NCAA-approved courses to protect your academic eligibility. Students can earn a UNHS diploma or take a single course for transfer credit. Courses are college prep, self-paced, and available 24/7, 365. Enroll anytime and take up to a year to complete a course. Visit highschool.nebraska.edu today.
Hey, it's Bobby Moran, Director of Athletics at Thayer Academy. You know what? Experience matters, and Thayer Academy's professional coaching staff understands how to work with each student athlete to help them succeed. Our coaches and faculty are committed to ensuring both 5th to 12th graders feel known, connected, and prepared. This is Thayer's secret sauce, nurturing each student to reach their full potential. Here, success is truly a team sport. Are you ready for your child to take the next step? See what Thayer has to offer at thayer.org. That's THAYER.org.
I was at the Absolute Filth Hockey Wax website the other day, and I was wondering to myself what Absolute Filth's Dragon's Blood smells like. Is it fiery, or maybe it's sweet like the scent of victory after a triple overtime game? Probably a mystical aroma that'll magically make you dominate the ice. Knowing the folks at Absolute Filth, I bet it's part fierce dragon, part subtle smokiness, with a dash of awesomeness jammed into that giant puck of wax. Whatever it is, I'm definitely grabbing some dragon's blood for my next game. Gonna slap that wax on my stick and play with fire. Sorry, boys, but the locker room's about to smell like a medieval fantasy tonight. Check out Dragon's Blood and more over at Absolute Filth's website, hockeywax.com. Perfect for the holidays, and they've even got a 2-for-1 sale going on right now with free shipping. Awaken your inner dragon and rule the ice at hockeywax.com.
Pat, I think we've covered everything. We've hit on Elite Eight forecasts. We've hit on small and large school forecasts. We've done Ed Burns and some MIAA. So there's only one thing left to do, and that's overtime with our great producer, David Yaz.
All right, let's do it. Here we go.
Oh, jeez.
Overtime.
Yes, once again, time for overtime. Those of you watching on YouTube enjoyed that little graphic featuring Pat and Evan, which I spent way too much time on. Did you guys enjoy it?
I did.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
That was great.
We've got 5 quotes today about the sport of hockey. Overtime is the segment where I give Evan and Pat questions of some sort and try to embarrass them and make them feel silly. And we'll see how this goes. YouTuber Buzz Hockey Clothing, not a sponsor of the show, but he posted an interesting video about the best quotes in hockey history. I've got 5 of them here. I'm just going to throw them to you guys. I want you to rate them sort of, if you were rating something if you were rating the best candy bars in the world, as the YouTubers will do, 1 to 10. 1 to 10. You could do, 7.2, 3.1, whatever. And Evan, you'll start. And we have the actual voice of this YouTuber, so let's take a listen to the first quote.
Gordie Howe saying, all hockey players are bilingual. They know English and profanity.
What do you think, Evan? You like that one?
So we got to rank it 1 through 10, basically?
Yeah, rank it 1 through 10.
1 is the best, right?
No, 10 is the best. The 10 is the tippy top.
Okay,
Come on,
okay,
man.
are
we giving it a score out of 1 through 10?
Just give it a score. This is just for fun.
Okay.
Come on.
I thought we were going like 1, 2, 3.
Oh, no. There
kinda
are only
did
5 of them. Yeah.
All right. I will give this a 8.4. It's a great quote. It's funny. It's to the point. It's Gordie Howe, so it's really good anyway. And he's right. So
It's especially
8.4.
true if you're at the Ed Burns this weekend.
That's right.
Is that right? Pat, what's your score?
What did Evan say? 8.2? I'll give it an 8.4. I think it's pretty
I
accurate.
gave it an 8.4.
Oh, you did? Whoops. All right, I'll give it an 8.2. It's accurately rated. Not the best quote, but it's pretty
Let me ask
fair.
you guys this. Are there any hockey players who don't swear? There got to be, right?
Oh, I'm sure. I don't think Brandon Carlo swears. I'm sure he's the type of guy who's like fudge or something like that.
I would agree.
Yeah,
right.
I think there are plenty of guys who are, a little more well-mannered than others.
Sure. I can't picture Wayne Gretzky swear. I'm sure he did, but we'll get to him in a moment, by the way. Next quote number 2 comes to us from PK Subban.
PK Subban, I try to hold it in until I get on the ice.
That quote got cut off. I try to hold it in until I get on the ice, then it breaks. PK Subban. Pat, what's your score?
That's a 1. I don't even know what he's talking about.
I would concur. I don't know, like, hold what in? Anger? Like,
I mean, I get this. I think I get the sentiment if it's like anger or emotion or whatever. But like, man, that's just not a great quote.
sounds like he's, driving home. He's got to go to the bathroom.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the first
Sorry,
part.
officer. I tried.
The first, if he didn't have the last part, you would think he was talking about having to urinate, which I hope he doesn't hold it in until he gets onto the ice, and I hope it doesn't break. All right, not a big fan of that one. I mentioned Wayne Gretzky before, and quote number 3 comes from Gretzky himself, and this is what Wayne had to say.
A good hockey player plays where the puck is. A great player plays where the puck is going to be.
Evan, your score.
9.4. That's a big quote. That's a big one when you're a kid because everybody wants to go for the puck, and then the coach will inevitably say, you got to figure out how to play away from it or figure out where it's going, and that's who separates the great kids from the good kids. So I would say 9.4. I like that quote.
I would draw an analogy to basketball, which I was just better at. I wasn't much of a skater, but the players that can move without the ball in basketball are the ones that are thinking on the next level. Everybody else wants to run towards the ball and say, throw me the ball. Pat, your score for Gretzky's quote there.
I'll give it a 9.9 for that adequate number.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, appropriate.
It's a winner.
All the reasons Evan said, and there was nothing worse than like either being that guy who sent a pass right into their skates because you didn't lead them into space, you just sent it where they were, so that it hits them in the feet or just misses them, or vice versa, getting a pass like that and potentially getting lit up because you're looking down for it.
Yeah. To draw another awkward comparison to basketball, I was playing a pickup basketball game once, and there was a guy who was a distributor, and he was fast as hell, and I could barely keep up with the guy, and I was running on a fast break, and the ball came and hit me in both hands really rapidly before I had a chance to catch it. Like, he was that good at knowing where I was going to be. I just wasn't good at knowing I was going to be there. All right. Quote number 4. We're actually going to go back to PK Subban. Quote number 4.
PK Subban, I can't wait for the crowd, the noise, the energy in the building. I can't wait to take that all away from them.
Read menacingly by our YouTuber there. Pat, your thoughts on that quote? Any better?
So that's a better one. Yeah. I'll give it an 8. It's a flat score, but I like the villain energy.
Is there something to enjoying playing on the road more than playing at home because of that dynamic?
Yeah, I think so, especially if it's in like a rivalry game or the playoffs or something, and you can shut everybody up.
Yep. Evan, your score and your thoughts.
I think PK Subban, growing up a Bruins fan, was a great villain because he was so damn good and infuriating because he was so physical. I'll give it an 8.5. He was a great villain. That beginning of the quote, I was like, oh, who cares about that? Congratulations to the crowd. But then I can't wait to take it away from them. I always, like, in high school playing against, rivals, Natick, Braintree, whomever, like, going into their buildings, I loved it. I remember Walpole, we showed up like 40 minutes before the game, and the place was just packed with Walpole kids. And it's fun shutting them up. It is fun. Now, it's not fun when you're getting trounced. You're getting wrecked, and that's not fun. But shutting an opposing crowd up is fun. Wasn't it Kirk Schilling who always said, like, I love to watch, like, 40,000 Yankee fans shut up or something like that?
Yeah, there's no better sound of, yeah. And there is something great about playing at home, and you feel a rush from your crowd cheering you on. But if you're in a close game on the road and it's incredibly loud, I think there's something incredibly fun about, can I withstand this? Can I hang in? And I'm trying to look up the Schilling quote because I think that's a good one, Evan. And Kurt Schilling said, Making 50,000 people from New York shut up was everything I dreamt it would be and more. Okay. So, and then he lost his mind. All right, final quote.
And then he tumbled down the hill. There went that.
Quote number 5 comes to us from Ilya. Yeah, I don't know. Ilya, you guys must know this guy. Ilya Brizgalov. Yes. And here's the quote.
It's only a game. Why you have to be mad? Ilya Brizgalov.
We'll listen to that one again.
It's only a game. Why you have to be mad? Ilya Brizgalov.
Yeah, he's like, it's hockey. It's only a game.
Right, it's only a game. It's only a game. Pat, your score and thoughts on Ilya's quote.
I don't know. I think it's fun. It's funnier now, and it's nice to like taunt my friends like that. It's only a game. Why do you have to be mad? But that's a dumb quote. Like that's probably like a 5.
Okay, Evan.
Like a 3. He said that in Philly. He was a well-paid goalie for the Philadelphia Flyers at that time. I think he was with Philly.
It was
Philly?
I thought it was Anaheim.
Might have been Anaheim, but he ended up in Philly, and he was a bust in Philly. Yeah, he was a character. That's probably the most like said memeable quote. That was a memeable quote before it became, before memes became a thing. But yeah, it's like a 3.
It reminds me of
Anaheim. He's wearing a Ducks practice jersey in that.
Oh my God, I forgot he was with Anaheim.
So he said it after a loss. Is that?
It must have been like day after or something. Yeah.
Yeah, because it would be a cool thing to say if you just beat another team and they were like trash talking you, to kind of just diffuse it and go, hey, it's all a game. Why you get mad? But for someone who's lost a game, that's defeatist. So it's probably not good. It also reminds me.
Continue. Yeah.
I was gonna say reminds me of the goalie in Slapshot.
Well, Brizgalov was dominant in Arizona. Like with that Phoenix,
he was good for a while.
He was nasty. And then he went to Philly and he was in the KHL, or not in the K. Well, he was in the KHL the year after because of the lockout, but he was not a great fit for that Philly fan base. Oh boy, no way. I think I watched his son, who was also a goalie at Select 17 2 years ago. So I don't know what he's up to, but he's not from around here. I think it was.
Well, you guys did a great job on overtime. I'll give you both 9.3s. You got to leave some room for improvement, but nicely done. And back to you, Evan, to wrap things up.
Well, that's RinkWise. A lot of stuff coming up. Big month coming with the MIAA, lead up to the playoffs, lead up to the Elite 8 and prep. And that's been RinkWise. That's Patrick Donnelly. I'm Evan Marinofsky. RinkWise listeners, we will see you at the rinks.